Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's see. Let's see if I'm even need to check. Let's see. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm still working on trying to make sure this is set up properly. I just need to make sure that I can hear everything correctly. Uh, yeah, I probably should have done this before I started the stream, but I'm not that smart. But that's okay, because we've had this before. Is this live? Is this live? Can I hear myself? Yeah, looks like I can. All right. Now let's see. Oop, let's mute myself. Ha! All right. Okay. Now we can finally begin. Just as soon as I do this. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is Felix Lebeski with SL Tonight. I apologize for the delay there, and I'm sure you enjoyed getting to listen to all that noise. We are currently here visiting the Witches Center and Cafe. As you can see at the sign, this is the cafe here, nice and lovely. Normally, we have the nice witch Sonia who would be here, but as of right now, she is currently down. Um, with other things to do. I think she has some research book, something. I don't know. Always doing something with her. But either way, speaking of books, we shall go ahead and get started on our book. Uh, as I pointed out before, we have done multiple different stories inside the Philip K. Dick anthology. I hope I shall arrive soon. Unfortunately, we still haven't arrived yet when it comes to that story, but we will. In the meantime, we have gone over his personal essay that he intended to give at what would be the first sci fi convention. Unfortunately, he passed away before that could happen, so they tossed it into this book. And my theories as to why is for reasons that if you've watched previous episodes, then you would know. But also, as I'll explain here, basically that essay is a story that covers the concept of what is reality and what makes human. What is it to be a human? And the questions that arises from asking those questions and not really having an answer. In his story, he ultimately said that he did not know like he did not know how reality, he couldn't prove it, but he knew that the only way he could know that reality existed was simply if you stop believing in it, it's still there. So it must exist. And he couldn't be wrong at all on that point. Um, then we go on, and the next story after that was about a brown shoe being brought to life. Um, Definitely an interesting story. And from the in-depth philosophizing that came from the first story, Um, this is the first proper story in the book, and quite frankly, it's more of a comedic take. I mean, essentially, it's a shoe being brought to life and then, acting like a pet dog or something, and then proceeding to bring a female shoe to life and then mating and running off into the forest. The end. So, not really much to say there on that one, but it is an interesting thought. Um, just the concept of giving life to a shoe, an inanimate object, and how that inanimate object would react. Next story after that was Explorers We. In this story, it was actually very interesting to me because it was a concept of idea of humans landing on Earth only to find that they are not actually humans at all, but instead aliens that are replicating humans and don't know that they're aliens, which is an interesting thought. Like, if you were sent to a different planet in order to conquer said planet, but in order to do it, you had to take on the image of somebody who crash landed on your planet and died, but you didn't know that they didn't know you died, so you just keep sending them. Definitely interesting. Then another story after that happened to be about a computer, very much like Skynet, well before Skynet came along. And an interesting story in that concept that it controls all the nukes, all the bombs, and if there's ever to be a war, just like a Skynet, it's ready to set it all off. All right, only in this case, it's ready to set it all off, not because we're at war with China or Russia or any other countries. No, no. It's ready to set them all off on one man, one singular man in the middle of Northern California. Why? Because he's Satan. Why is he Satan? Because he makes little toy trinkets and gumballs and sells them out of gumball vending machines. Now, mind you, the story was written in 1978, well long before a computer of today would be concepted. Their idea, like their thing of a computer, was literally wall to wall. One computer was literally just an entire wall of whirring gadgets and whatnot and ticker tapes. And so in this case situation, the only information the computer can have is via a ticker tape that crosses its spool. There's no way it could have the conceptual knowledge that it has without it being fed to it. And even when being fed the information they want it to have, it outright rejects the information as false without having any ability to actually discern as such, which is an interesting concept because can a computer actually think for itself? And this, again, precedes Skynet by at least 11 years or more. And at that same rate, he's talking about something here that, again, as the story folds, like they consider the machine is just broken because it actually thinks of God. It actually thinks God created it in a sense of creating man, therefore it created it. And upon hearing this, essentially the maintenance man just calls it broken and has it dismantled, only to find out that the computer wasn't exactly wrong in its determination after all. But by then it was too late. And so, as we stand, we get to what do we do with Ragland Park? In this story deals of manipulation by corporate structures and the individual common man, and how the common man gets used in order, like the common man wants to make money and he wants to survive and he wants to get by, but he doesn't want to fuck people over to do it. The corporate man doesn't give a shit. They just want to make money. And so ultimately, the common man ends up getting used by the corporate man out of the structure because it's in the nature of the corporate and it's in the nature of the common man to basically he's going to get fucked over because he has to. In order for corporate to work, the common man has to work too. And what happens when corporates get too big for their britches and get out of their league? And I guess that is what we will find out today. So again, I am Felix Lebeski. This is SL Tonight. We are at the Witches Center and Cafe, and we are going to be reading What Do We Do with Ragland Park. Now, I must stress, disclaimer here, folks, there is some misappropriation, we shall say. There's possible offensive terms and terminologies and languages, um, tone that could be considered offensive. And so, as such, anything is just a disclaimer that anything that is written inside this story, the story was written in 1978. So, please do not get misinterpreted to this being a modern day retelling of something. There is absolutely no contentious to this. This is just a story. So, do not read anything into it beyond that. I do not hold any responsibility for your offensive or unoffensive or just plain outright stupidity. Thank you. Now, what do we do with Ragland Park? And there's also, by the way, just before I even get started, I'm sorry, Desmine. Desmine or Desmine is a French word which means domain. This word is used numerous times inside this story, and just from the offset, it says Desmine. I'm going to say domain. So when you hear the word domain, just know that it is Desmine, not domain in the book. As I go. In his domain near the logging town of John Day, Oregon, Sebastian Hatta thoughtfully ate a grape as he watched the TV screen. The grapes flown to Oregon by illegal transport came from one of his farms in Sonoma Valley, California. He spat the seeds into the fireplace across from him, half listening to his culture announcer delivering a lecture on the portrait bust of 20th century sculptors. If only I could get Jim Briskin on my network, Hatta thought gloomily. The ranking TV news clown, so popular with his flaming scarlet wig and genial informal patter culture, needs that, Hatta realized. But their society at the moment was being run by the idiotic, but peculiarly able President Maximilian Fisher, who had locked horns with Jim Jam Briskin, who had in fact clapped the famous news clown in jail. So as a result, Jim Jam was available neither for the commercial network which linked the three habitable planets nor for culture. And meanwhile, Max Fisher ruled on. If I could get Jim Jam out of prison, had a thought, perhaps due to gratitude, he'd move over to my network, leave his sponsors Rhinelander Beer and CalBest Electronics. After all, they have not been able to free him despite their intricate court maneuvers. They don't have the power or the know-how, and I have. One of Hatta's wives, Thelma, had entered the living room of the domain and now stood watching the TV screen from behind him. Don't place yourself there, please, Hatta said. It gives me a panic reaction. I like to see people's faces. He twisted around in his deep chair, which his wives are a major thing inside this story, although we don't ever really meet any but like two. And ultimately, like they have absolutely nothing to do with the story overall. I have no idea what the fuck this is doing in the story because they only really play a part in one part of it, and it's like even then it doesn't work. So it's like, okay, you'll see. It was the fox is back, Thelma said. I saw him. He glared at me. She laughed with delight. He looked so feral and independent. A bit like you, Seb. I wish I could have gotten a film clip of him. I must bring Jim Jam Briskin, Hadda said aloud. He had decided. Picking up the phone, he dialed Culture's production chief, Nat Kaminsky, at the transmitting Earth satellite Colonna. In exactly 1 hour, Haddock told his employee, I want all our outlets to begin crying for Jim Jam Briskin's release from jail. He's not a traitor, as President Fisher declares. In fact, his political rights, his freedom of speech, have been taken away from him illegally. Got it? Show clips of Briskin. Build him up. You understand. Hadda hung up then and dialed his attorney, Art Hevesy. Delma said, I'm going back outdoors and feed the animals. Do that, Hadda said, lighting an Abdullah, a British-made Turkish cigarette, which he was most fond of. An Abdullah. Might as well just call it a fucking camel. But then again, I guess camels aren't British-made, are they? Art, he said in the phone, get started on Jim Jam Briscoe's case. Find a way to free him. His lawyer's voice came protestingly. But Seb, if we mix into that, we'll have our President Fisher after us with the FBI. It's too risky. Hadda said, I need Briskin. Culture has become pompous. Look at the screen right this minute. Education and art. We need a personality, a good news clown. We need Jim Jam. Telescan surveys of late have shown an ominous dropping off of viewers, but he did not tell Art Heaviside that it was confidential. Sighing, the attorney said, Will do, Seb, but the charge against Briskin is sedition in time of war. Time of war? With whom? Those alien ships, that entered the Sol system last February. Darn it, Seb, you know we're at war. You can't be so lofty as to deny that. It's a legal fact. In my opinion, Etta said, the aliens are not hostile. He put the receiver down, feeling angry. It's Max Fisher's way of holding on to supreme power, he said to himself, thumping the war scare drum. I ask you, what actual damage have the aliens done lately? After all, we don't own the Sol system. We just like to think we do. In any case, culture, educational TV itself was withering, and as the owner of the network, Sebastian Hatta had to act. Am I personally declining in vigor? He asked himself. Once more, picking up the phone, he dialed his analyst, Dr. Ito Yusumi, at his domain outside of Tokyo. Which, did he hang up? Yeah, I guess putting the receiver down means he hung it up. I need help, he said to himself. Culture's creator and financial backer needs help, and Dr. Yusume can give it to me. Facing him across his desk, Dr. Yusume said, maybe problem stems from you having 8 wives. There's this guy's Asian, so there's that thing I was talking about. That's about 5 too many. He waved Hada back to the couch. Be calm, Hada. Pretty sad that big time operator like Mr. S. Hada falling apart under stress. You afraid President Fisher's FBI get you like they got Jim Briskin? He smiled. No, Hada said. I'm fearless. With a semi-supine, arms behind his head, gazing at Paul Klee print on the wall. Or perhaps it was an original. Good analysts did make a god-awful amount of money. Usume's charge to him was $1,000 a half hour. Usume said contemplatively, Maybe you should seize power, Hada, and bold coup against Max Fisher. Make successful power play of your own. Become president, and then release Mr. Jim Jam. No problem then. Fisher has their armed forces behind him, Hada said gloomily, as commander in chief. Because General Tompkins, who likes Fisher, they're absolutely loyal. He had already thought of this. Maybe I ought to flee to my domain in Callisto, he murmured. It was a superb one, and Fisher, after all, had no authority there. It was not U.S., but Dutch territory. Anyhow, I don't want to fight. I'm not a fighter or street brawler. I'm a cultured man. You are a biophysical organism with built-in responses. You are alive. All that lives strives to survive. You will fight if necessary, Hada. Looking at his watch, Hada said, I have to go, Ito. At 3, I have an appointment in Havana to interview a folk singer, a ballad and banjo man who's sweeping Latin America. Raglan Park is his name. He can bring life back into culture. I know of him, Ito Yasumi said. I saw him on commercial TV. Very good performer. Part Southern U.S., part Dane. Very young, with huge black mustache and blue eyes. Magnetic, this Rags, as it's called. But is folk singing cultural? Hayata murmured. I'll tell you something. I'll tell you something, Dr. Yusume said. There's strangeness about Rags Park. I noted even over TV. Not like other people. That's why he's such a sensation. More than that, I dis I diagnose, Ryusumi reflected. You know, mental illness and psionic power is closely related, as in poltergeist effect. Many schizophrenics, uh, as I tell you something, there's strangeness about Rags Park. I noted even over TV, not like other people. That's why he's such a sensation. More than that, I diagnose. Yusumi reflected. You know, mental illness and psionic power is closely related, as in poltergeist effect. Many schizophrenics of paranoid variety are telepaths, picking up hate thoughts and subconscious impressions around them. I know, Hada sighed, thinking that this was costing hundreds of dollars of spouting a psychiatric theory. Go careful with Rags Park, Dr. Usame cautioned. You volatile type, Hada. Jump too quick. First idea is bringing Jim Jam Briskin, risking FBI wrath, and now this Rags Park. You like hat designer or human flea. Best bet, as I say, is to openly face President Fisher, not deviousness as I foresee you doing. Devious, Hada murmured. I'm not devious. You most devious patient I got, Dr. Usume told him bluntly. You got nothing but tricky bones in your body, Hada. Watch out, or you scheme yourself out of existence. He nodded with great soberness. I'll go carefully, Hada said, his mind on Rags Park. He barely heard what Dr. Usume was telling him. A favor, Dr. Usime said. When you can arrange, let me examine Mr. Park. I would enjoy, okay? For your good, Hada, as well as professional interests. Side talent may be of new kind, one never knows. Okay, Hada agreed. I'll give you a call. But he thought, I'm not going to pay for it. Your examination of Rags Park will be on your own time. There was an opportunity before his appointment with the ballad singer Rags Park to drop by the federal prison in New York at which Jim Jam Briskin was being held on the sedition and time of war charge. Hada had never met the news clown face to face, and he was surprised to discover how much older the man looked on TV. And okay, perhaps Briskin's arrest, his troubles with President Fisher, had temporarily overwhelmed him. It would be enough to overwhelm anybody. Hada reflected as the deputy unlocked the cell and admitted him. How did you happen to tangle with President Fisher? Hada asked. The news clown shrugged and said, You lived through that period in history as much as I did. He lit a cigarette and stared woodenly past Hada. He was referring, Hada realized, to the demise of the great problem solving computer at Washington, D.C. Hada reflected as the deputy unlocked the cell and admitted, How did you happen to tangle with President Fisher? I don't know. It didn't double up. I mean, Hada reflected as the deputy unlocked the cell and admitted him. How did you happen to tangle with President Fisher? Hada asked. The news clown shrugged and said, You lived through that period in history as much as I did. He lit a cigarette and stared woodenly past Hada. He was referring, Hada realized, to the demise of the great problem solving computer at Washington, D.C., the Unicephalon 40D, that had ruled as President of the United States and Commander in Chief of the Armed Forces until a missile delivered by the alien ships had put it out of action. Which is ironic since that's what happened basically to that other computer. Well, other than the missile part. Uh, so yeah, so the story's connected. It's weird. Like it's connected, but it's not connected. Which is kind of what the essay like. It's just saying all these stories are connected via this kind of theming: humanity, reality, what is, and then what happens if it doesn't. But during that period, standby President Max Fisher had taken power. All right, it doesn't work for shit in here anyway. Doesn't matter. During the period stamped by President Max Fisher had taken power, a Claude appointed by the Union, a permanent man with unnatural bucolic cunning. When at last Ucephalon 40D had been repaired and had resumed functioning, it had ordered Fisher to depart his office and Jim Briskin to cease political activity. Neither man had complied. Briskin had gone on campaigning against Max Fisher, and Fisher had managed, by some method still unknown, to disable the computer, thereby again becoming President of the United States. And his initial act had been to clap Jim Jam in jail. Has Art Heaviside, my attorney, seen you? Hada asked. No, Briskin said shortly. Listen, my friend, Hada said, without my help, you'll be in prison forever, or at least until Max Fisher dies. This time he isn't making the mistake of allowing Ucephalon 40D to be repaired. It's out of action for good. Briskin said, you want me to on your network in exchange for getting me out of here? He smoked rapidly at his cigarette. I need you, Jim Jam, Hada said. It took courage for you to expose President Fisher for the power-hungry buffoon he is. We got a terrible menace hanging over us in Max Fisher, and if we don't join together and work fast, it'll be too late. We'll both be dead. You know, in fact, you said it on TV that Fisher would gladly stoop to assassination to get what he wants. Briskin said, can I say what I want over your facilities? I give you absolute freedom. Attack anyone you want, including me. After a pause, Briskin said, I'd take your offer, Hada, but I doubt even if Hart Heaviside could get me out of here. Leon Late, Fisher's attorney general, is conducting a prosecution against me personally. Don't resign yourself, Hada said. Billions of your viewers are waiting to see you emerge from this cell. And at this moment, all my outlets are clamoring for your release. Public pressure is building up. Even Max will have to listen to that. What I'm afraid of is that accident will happen to me, Briskin said, just like the accident that befell Ucephalon 40D a week after it resumed functioning. If it couldn't save itself, how can you afraid? Hada inquired, incredulous. Jim Jam Briskin, the ranking news clown? I don't believe it. There was silence. Briskin said, the reason my sponsors, Rhinelander Beer and Calabest Electronics, haven't been able to get me out is, he paused, pressure put on them by President Fisher. Their attorneys as much as admitted that to me. When Fisher learns you're trying to help me, he'll bring all the pressure he has to bear directly on you. He glanced up acutely at Hada. Do you have the stamina to endure it? I wonder. Certainly I have, Hada said, as I told Dr. Yusume. And he'll put pressure on your wives, Jim Jam Briskin said. I'll divorce all 8 of them, Otto said hotly. Riskin held out his hand and they shook. It's a deal then. Jimmy Jan said, I'll go work for culture as soon as I'm out of here. He smiled in a weary but hopeful way. Elated, Hada said, have you heard of Rags Park, the folk and ballad singer? At 3 today, I'm signing him too. There's a TV set here, and then I catch one of Park's numbers, Briskin said. He sounds good, but do you want that on culture? It's hardly educational. Culture is changing. We're going to sugarcoat our dictatums from now on. We've been losing our audience. I don't intend to see culture wither away. The very concept of it, the word culture stood for a committee utilizing learning techniques for urban renewal efforts. A major part of Hada's real estate holdings consisted of the city of Portland, Oregon, which he had acquired intact 10 years ago. It was not worth much, typical of the semi-abandoned slum constellations that had become not only repellent but obsolete. Portland had a certain sentimental value to him because he had been born there. However, one notion lingered in his mind. If for any reason the colonies on other planets or moons had to be abandoned, if the settlers came streaming back to Earth, the cities would be repopulated once more. And with the alien ships flitting about the further planets, this was not as implausible as it sounded. In fact, a few families had immigrated back to Earth already. So underneath, culture was not quite the disinterested public service nonprofit agency that it appeared. Mixed in with the education, hottest outlets drummed away at the seductive idea of the city, how much it could offer, how little there was to be had in the colonies. Give up the difficult, crude life of the frontier, culture declared night and day. Return to your own planet, repair the decaying cities. There's your real home. Did Briskin know this? Hada wondered. Did the news clan understand the actual purpose of his organization? Hada would find that out if and when he managed to get Briskin out of jail and before a culture microphone. At 3 o'clock, Sebastian Hatta met the folk singer Raglan Park at the Havana Office of Culture. I'm glad to make your acquaintance, Rags Park said shyly. Tall, skinny, with his huge black mustache hiding most of his mouth. He shuffled about self-consciously, his blue eyes gentle with authentic friendliness. He had an unusual sweetness about him, Hada noted, almost a saintly quality. Hada found himself impressed. And he played both the guitar and the five-string banjo? Hada said. Not at once, of course. Rags Park mumbled, no, sir, I'll alternate. Want me to play something right now for you? Where were you born? Matt Kaminsky asked. Hada had brought his production chief along in matters such as this. Kaminsky's companion was valuable. In Arkansas, Rags answered. My family raises hogs. He had his banjo with him, and now, nervously, twanged a few notes. I know a real sad song that'll break your heart. It's called Poor Old Hoss. Want me to sing it for you? We've heard you, Hada said. We know you're good. He tried to imagine this awkward young man twanging away over culture, in between lectures of 20th century portrait sculptures. Hard to imagine. Rags said, I bet there's one thing you don't know about me, Mr. Hada. I make up a lot of my own ballads. Because as you can see, they don't actually give a shit that he can write his own songs or that he does his own stuff. They just want him on the station. And he goes, creative, Kaminsky said to Hada, straight faced. That's good. For instance, Rags continued, I once made up a ballad about a man named Tom McPhail who ran 10 miles with a bucket of water to put out a fire in his little daughter's crib. Did he make it? Hada asked. Sure did, just in time. Tom McPhail ran faster and faster with that bucket of water, chanting. Rags twanged an accompaniment. Here comes Tom McPhail, holding on tight to that great little pail. Hold on tight, boys, here he come, heart full of fear, faculties mum. Twang, twang, sounded the banjo, mournfully and urgently. Vinsky said acutely, I've been following your shows and I never heard you sing that number. Oh, Rags said, I had bad luck with that, Mr. Kaminsky. Turns out there really is a Tom McPhail, lives in Pocatello, Idaho. I sang about old Tom McPhail on my January 14th TV show, and right away he got sore. He was listening and got a lawyer to write me. Wasn't it just a coincidence in names? Hada said. Well, Rag said, twisting about subconsciously, it seemed there really had been a fire in his home there in Pocatello, and McPhail, he got panicky and ran with a bucket to the creek, and it was 10 miles off, like I said in the song. Did he get back with the water in time? Amazingly, he did, Rag said. Vinci said to Hada, it'd be better on culture if this man stuck to authentic Old English ballads such as Greensleeves. That would seem more what we want. Thoughtfully, Hada said to Rags, bad luck to pick a name for a ballad and have it turn out that such a man really exists. Have you had that sort of bad luck since? Yes, I have, Rags admitted. I made up a ballad last week. It was about a lady, Miss Marcia Dobbs. Listen. All day, all night, Marcia Dobbs loves a married man whose wife she robs. Robs that wife and hurt the Jack Cook's heart. Steals the husband, makes that marriage fall apart. That's the first verse, Rags explained. It goes on for 17 verses. Tells how Martha comes to work at Jack Cook's office as secretary, goes to lunch with him, and then later they meet late at. Is there a moral at the end? Minsky inquired. Oh, sure, Rags said. Don't take no one else's man, 'cause if you do, heaven avenges its dishonored wife. In this case, virus flu lay round the corner just for Jack. For Marcia Dobbs, 'twas to be worse a heart attack. Miss Cook's the hand of heaven sought to spare surrounded her, became a garment strong to wear. Miss Cooks, Hada broke in over the twang and sang. That's fine, Rag. That's enough. He glanced at Kaminsky and winced. And I bet it turned out Kaminsky said that there is a real Marcia Dobbs who had an affair with her boss, Jack Cooks. Right, Rag said, nodding. No lawyer called me, but I read it in a homeopath in the New York Times. Marcia, she died of a heart attack, and it was actually during. He hesitated modestly, you know, while she and Jack Cooks were at a motel satellite love making. Have you deleted that number from your repertoire? Kaminsky asked. Well, Rag said, I can't make up my mind. Nobody's suing me, and I like the ballad. I think I'll leave it in. To himself, had a thought. Was this what Dr. Usumi said? That he had sensed psi powers, some unusual kind in Rag Park? Perhaps it's a parapsychological power of having the bad luck to make up ballads about people who really exist. Not much of a talent, that. On the other hand, he realized it could be a variant on the telepathic talent, and with a little tinkering it might be quite valuable. How long does it take to make up a ballad? He asked. I can do it on the spot, Rags Park answered. I can do it now. Give me a theme, and I'll compose right here in this office of yours. Ada pondered and then said, my wife Thelma has been feeding a gray fox that I know, or I believe, killed and ate our best ruined duck. After a moment of considering, Rags Park twanged. Miss Thelma had talked to the fox, built it a home from an old pine box. Sebastian Hada heard a sad cluck. Wicked gray fox had eaten his duck. But ducks don't cluck, they quack, Nat Kaminsky said critically. That's a fact, Rags admitted. He pondered and then sang, Had his production chief changed my luck? I got no job and ducks don't cluck. Grinning Kaminsky said, Okay, Rags, you win. To Hada, he said, I advise you hire him. Let me ask you this, Hada said to Rags. Do you think the fox got my ruin? Gosh, Rags said, I don't know anything about that. But in your ballad you said so, Hada pointed out. Let me think, Rags said. Presently he twanged once more and said, "Interesting problem, Hadda stated. Perhaps my abilities underrated. Perhaps I'm not no ordinary guy. Do I get my ballots through the use of psi?" "How did you know I meant psi?" Hadda asked. "You can read interior thoughts, can't you?" Yusumi was right. Rag said, "Mister, I'm just singing and twanging. I'm just an entertainer, same as Jim Jam Briskin, that news clown President Fisher clapped in jail." "You afraid of jail?" Hadda asked him bluntly. "President Fisher doesn't have nothing against me," Rags said. "I don't do political ballads. If you work for me, Hadda said, maybe you will. I'm trying to get Jim Jam out of jail. Today all my outlets begin their campaign." "Yes, he ought to be out," Rags agreed, nodding. "That was a bad thing, President Fisher using the FBI for that. Those aliens aren't that much of a menace." Kaminsky, rubbing his chin meditatively, said, "Do one on Jim Jam Briskin, Max Fisher, the aliens, on the whole political situation. Sum it up." "That's asking a lot," Rags said with a wry smile. "Try," Kaminsky said. "See how well you can epitomize." "Woo-wee," Rags said. "Epitomize. Now I know I'm talking to culture." "Okay, Mr. Kaminsky, how's this?" he sang. "Fat little president by the name of Max uses power to give Jim the axe. Sebastian Hadda's got eyes like a vulture, sees his opening, steps in with culture." "You're hired," Hadda said to the folk singer, and reached into his pocket for a contract form. Mincy said, "Will we be successful, Mr. Park? Tell us about the outcome." "I'd rather not," Rags said. "At least not this minute. You think I can also read the future, too? That I'm a precog as well as a telepath?" He laughed gently. "I got plenty of talent, according to you. I'm flattered." He bowed mockingly. "I'll assume that you're coming to work for us," Hada said, "and your willingness to be employee of culture is it a sign that you feel President Fisher is not going to be able to get us?" "Oh, we could be in jail too, along with Jim Jam," Rags murmured. "That wouldn't surprise me." Seating himself, his banjo in hand, he prepared to sign the contract. In his bedroom at the White House, President Max Fisher had listened for almost an hour now to the TV set, the culture hammering away on the same topic again and again. "Jim Briskin must be released," the voice said. It was a smooth, professional announcer's voice, but behind it, unheard, Max knew, was Sebastian Hatta. "Attorney General," Max said to his cousin Leon Late, "give me dossiers on all Hada's wives, all 7 or 8, whatever it is. I guess I gotta take a drastic course." When later in the day the 8 dossiers had been put before him, he began to read carefully, chewing on his old Reducto Alta cigar and frowning, his lips moving with the effort of comprehending the intricate, detailed material. "Geez, what a mess some of these dames must be," he realized. "Ought to be getting chemical psychotherapy, have their brains' metabolism straightened out." But he was not displeased. It had been his hunch that a man like Sebastian Hatta would attract an unstable sort of woman. One in particular, Hatta's fourth wife, interested him. Zoe Martin Hatta, 31 years old, now living on Io with her 10-year-old son. Zoe Hatta had definite psychotic traits. "Attorney General," he said to his cousin, "this dame is living on a pension supplied by the U.S. Department of Mental Health. Hatta isn't contributing a dime to her support. You get her here to the White House, you understand? I got a job for her." Following morning, Zoe Martin Hatta was brought to his office. He saw between two FBI men a scrawny woman, attractive, but with wild, animosity-filled eyes. "Hello, Mrs. Zoe Hatta," Max said. "Listen, I know something about you. You're the only genuine Miss Hatta. The others are imposters, right? And Sebastian's done you dirty." He waited and saw the expression on her face change. "Yes," Zoe said. "I've been in court for 6 years trying to prove what you just said. I can hardly believe it. Are you really going to help me?" "Sure," Max said. "But you got to do it my way. I mean, if you're waiting for that skunk Hatta to change, you're wasting your time. About all you can do is," he paused, "is even up the score." The violence which left her face crept back as she understood, gradually, what he meant. Frowning, Dr. Ito Yusumi said, "I have now made my examination, Hada." He began putting away his battery of cards. "This Reg's part is neither telepath nor precog. He neither reads my mind nor cognates what is to be, and frankly, Hada, although I still sense some psi power about him, I have no idea what it might be." Otto listened in silence. Now Rags Park, this time with a guitar over his shoulder, wandered in from the other room. It seemed to amuse him that Dr. Usumi could make nothing of him. He grinned at both of them and then seated himself. "I'm a puzzle," he said to Hada. "Either you got too much when you hired me or not enough. If you don't know which, neither does Dr. Usumi or me." "I want you to start over at Culture," Otto told him impatiently. Make up and sing folk ballads that depict the unfair imprisonments and harassment of Jim Jam Briskin by Leon Late and his FBI. Make Late appear a monster. Make Fisher appear a scheming, greedy boob. Understand?" "Sure," Rags Park nodded. "We got a public opinion aroused. I know that when I signed, I ain't just entertaining no more." Dr. Yusume said to Rags, "Listen, I have a favor to ask. Make up folk-style ballad telling how Jim Jam get out of jail." Both Hadda and Ragspark glanced at him. Not about what is, Yusumi explained, but about that which we want to be. Shrugging, Park said, Okay. The door to Hada's office burst open, and the chief of his bodyguards, Dieter Saxon, put his head excitedly in. Mr. Hada, we just gunned down a woman who was trying to get through to you with a homemade bomb. You have a moment to identify her? We think maybe it was one of your wives. God in heaven, Hada said, and hurried along with Saxon from the office and down the corridor. There on the floor near the front entrance of the domain lay a woman he knew. Zoe, he thought. He knelt down, touched her. Sorry, Saxon mumbled. We had to, Mr. Hada. All right, he said. I believe you if you say so. He greatly trusted Saxon. After all, he had to. Saxon said, I think from now on you'd better have one of us close by you at all times. I don't mean outside your office, I mean within physical touch. I wonder if Max Fisher sent her here, Hada said. The chances are good, Saxon said. I'd make a book on it. Just because I'm trying to get Jim Jam Briskin released. Otto was thoroughly shaken. It really amazes me, he rose to his feet unsteadily. Let me go after Fisher, Saxon urged in a low voice, for your protection. He has no right to be president. Cephalon 40D is our only legal president, and we all know Fisher put it out of commission. No, Hana murmured, I don't like murder. It's not murder, Saxon said. It's protection for you and your wives and your children. Maybe so, but I still can't do it. At least not yet. He left Saxton and made his way with difficulty back to his office, where Rags Park and Dr. Yusume waited. We heard, Yusume said to him. Bear up, Hada. The woman was a paranoid schizophrenic with delusions of persecution. Without psychotherapy, it was inevitable that she would meet a violent death. Do not blame yourself or Mr. Saxton. Hada said, and at one time I loved that woman. Dolefully strumming on his guitar, Rags Park sang to himself. The words were not audible. Perhaps he was practicing on his ballad of Jim Briskin's escape from jail. Take Mr. Saxon's advice, Dr. Usome said. Protect yourself at all times. He patted Hada on the shoulder. Rags spoke up. Mr. Hada, I think I got my ballad now. About I don't want to hear it, Hada said harshly. Not now. He wished the two of them would leave. He wanted to be by himself. Maybe I should fight back, he thought. Dr. Usome recommends it. Now Dieter Saxon recommends it. What would Jim Jam recommend? He has a sound mind. He would say, don't employ murder. I know that would be his answer. I know him. And if he says not to, I won't. Dr. Usome was instructing Rags Park. A ballad, please, about that vase of gladiola over there on the bookcase. Tell how it rises up in the air and hover, all right? Kind of ballad is that? Reg said. Anyhow, I got my work cut out for me. You heard what Mr. Hada said. But I'm still testing you, Dr. Yusume grumbled. To his cousin, the Attorney General, Max Fisher said disgustingly, well, we didn't get him. No, Max, Leon Lade agreed. He's got good men in his employ. He's not an individual like Briskin. He's a whole corporation. Moodily, Max said, I read a book once that if there are three people are competing, eventually two of them will join together and gang up on the third one. It's inevitable. That's exactly what's happened. Hada and Briskin are buddies, and I'm alone. We have to split them apart, Leon, and get one of them on our side against the other. Once Briskin liked me, only he disapproved of my methods. Leon said, wait until he hears about Zoe Hada trying to kill her ex-husband. Then Briskin will really disapprove of you. You think it's impossible to win him over now? I sure do, Max. You're in a worse position than ever regarding him. Forget about winning him over. There's some idea in my mind, though, Max said. I can't quite make out what it is yet, but it has to do with ring Jim Jam in the hopes that he'll feel gratitude. You're out of your mind, Leon said. How come you ever thought of an idea like that? It isn't like you. I don't know, Max groaned, but there it is. To Sebastian Hada, Rex Park said, I think maybe I got me a ballad now, Mr. Hada, like Dr. Yusume suggested. Has to do with telling how Jim Jam gets out of jail. You want to hear it? Dully Hada nodded. Go ahead. After all, he was paying the folk singer. He might as well get something for his money. Swinging away, Rags sang, Jim Jam Briskin languished in jail, couldn't find no one to put up his bail. Blame Max Fisher, blame Max Fisher. Rags explained, that's the chorus, blame Max Fisher, okay? All right, Hada said, nodding. With fire in his eyes, Rags launched into the body of the song. The Lord came along, said Max, I'm mad. Casting a man in jail, that was bad. Blame Max Fisher, the good Lord cried. Poor Jim Briskin, his rights denied. Blame Max Fisher, I'm here to tell. Good Lord, say him, go straight to hell. Repent, Max Fisher, there's only one route. Get on my good side, let Jim Jam out. Rags explained to Hada, now here's what's going to happen. He cleared his throat. Bad Max Fisher, he saw the light. Told Leon late, we got to do right. Send a message down to turn that key. Open that door and let Jim Jam free. Old Jim Briskin sawed into his plight. Jail door open now, let's in the light. That's all, Rags from Hada. Sort of a holler type of folk song, spiritual where you tap your foot. You like it? Hada managed to nod. Oh, sure, anything's fine. Shall I tell Mr. Kaminsky you want me to air it over culture? Air away, Hada said. He did not care. The death of Zoe still weighed on his mind. He felt responsible, because after all, it had been his bodyguards who had done it, and the fact that Zoe had been insane, had been trying to destroy him, did not seem to matter. It was still a human life. It was still murder. Listen, he said to Rags on impulse, I want you to make up another song now. With sympathy, Rags said, I know, Mr. Hada. A ballad about the sad death of your former wife, Zoe. I've been thinking about that and have a ballad already. Listen. There was once a lady fair to see and hear, wonder spirit over field and star, sorrowful but forgiving from afar. That spirit knows who did her in. It was a stranger, not her kin. It was Max Fisher who knew her not. Had to interrupt it. Don't whitewash me, Rags. I'm to blame. Don't put everything on Max as if he's the whipping boy. Seated in a corner of the office, listening quietly, Dr. Yusume now spoke up. Also, too much credit to President Fisher and your ballots, Rags. In ballot of Jim Jam's release from jail, you specifically give credit to Max Fisher for ethical change of heart. This will not do. The credit for Jim Jam's release must go to Hada. Listen, Rags, I have composed a poem for this occasion. Dr. Yusume chanted, News Clown Nestles not in jail. A friend, Sebastian Hada, got him free. He loves that friend, regards him well, knows whom to honor and to seek. Exactly 32 syllables, Dr. Yusume explained modestly. Old-style Japanese-type haiku poetry does not have to rhyme as do U.S. English ballads. However, we must get right to the point, which is this matter is all important. Rags, he said, you make my haiku into ballad, okay? In your typical phallus, in rhythmic, rhyming couplets, etc., and so on. I counted 33 syllables, Rags said. Anyhow, I'm a creative artist. I'm not used to being told what to compose. He turned to Hada. Who am I working for, you or him? Not him, as far as I know. Do as he says, Hadda told Rags. He's a brilliant man. Sullenly, Rags murmured, Okay, but I didn't expect this sort of job when I signed the contract. He retired to a far corner of the office to breathe, think, and compose. What are you involved with here, Doctor? Hadda asked. We'll see, Dr. Yusume said mysteriously. The theory about psi power of this balladeer here may pay off, may not. You seem to feel the exact wording of Rags' ballads is very important. That's right, he agreed, as in legal document. You wait, Hada, you find out. If I right, eventually. If I wrong, doesn't matter anyhow. He smiled encouragingly at Hada. The phone of President Max Fisher's office rang. It was the Attorney General, his cousin, calling in agitation. Max, I went over to the federal pen where Jim Jam is to see about quashing the charges against him like you were talking about. Leon hesitated. He's gone, Max. He's not in there anymore. Leon sounded wildly nervous. How'd he get out? Max said, more baffled than angry. Art Heaviside. How does the attorney found a way? I don't know yet what it is. I have to see Circuit Judge Dale Winthrop about it. He signed the release order an hour or so ago. I have an appointment with Winthrop. As soon as I've seen him, I'll call you back. I'll be darned, Max said slowly. Well, we were too late. He had the phone reflexively and then stood deep in thought. What has Haddock got going for him? He asked himself. Something I don't understand. And now the thing to watch for, he realized, is Jim Briskin showing up on TV, on Culture's network. Going over to the television set, Max turned it on. The release he saw on the screen, not Jim Briskin, but a folk singer plucking away on a banjo. Then he realized the folk singer was singing about him. Bad Max Fishery saw light, told Leon late, we gotta do right. Sent a message down to turn that key. Listening, Max Fisher said aloud, My God, that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what I did. Eerily, he thought, what's it mean, this ballad singer on culture who sings about what I'm doing? Secret matters he possibly couldn't know about. Telepathic, maybe? Max thought. That must be it. Now the folk singer was narrating and plucking about Sebastian Hada. How Hada had been personally responsible for getting Jim Jam Briskin out of jail, and it's true. Max said to himself. When Leon Lake got there to the federal pen, he'd found Briskin had gone because of Art Headside's activity. I better listen pretty carefully to the singer, because for some reason he seems to know more than I do. But the singer had now finished. The Culture's announcer was saying that was a brief interlude of political ballads by the world-renowned Raglan Park. Mr. Park, you will be pleased to hear, will appear on this channel every hour for 5 minutes of new ballads composed here in Culture Studios for the occasion. Mr. Park will be watching the teletypers and will compose his ballads too. Max switched to set off then. Like Calypso, Max realized. News ballads. God, he thought dismally. Suppose Park sings one about Yusef 140D coming back. I have a feeling, he thought, that what Raglan Park sings turns out to be true. It's one of those psionic talents, and they, the opposition, are making use of this. On the other hand, he thought, I might have a few psionic talents of my own, because if I didn't, I wouldn't have gotten as far as I have. Seated before the TV set, he switched it on once again and waited, chewing his lower lip, pondering what he should do. As yet, he come up with nothing. But I will, sooner or later, he said to himself, and before they come up with the idea of bringing Cephalon D, the 40D back. Dr. Yusume said, I have solved where Raglan Park side tower is, huh? Oh, you care to know? I'm more interested in the fact that Jim Jam is out of jail, Hada answered. Put down the receiver of the telephone and I'm almost unable to believe the news. He'll be here right away. He said to Dr. Yusume, he's on his way direct by monorail. We'll see that he gets to Callisto where Max has no jurisdiction, so they can't possibly arrest him. His mind swirled with plans. Rubbing his hands together, he said rapidly, Jim Jam can broadcast from our transmitter on Callisto, and he can live at my domain there. That'll be beer and Skittles for him. I know he'll agree. He is out, Dr. Yusume said dryly, because of Reg's sight talent, so you better listen, because his sight talent is not understood even by Regs, and honest to God, it could rebound on you at any time. Reluctantly, Hada said, okay, give me your opinion. The relationship between Rags' made-up ballad and reality is one of cause and effect. What Rags describes then takes place. The ballad precedes the event and not by much. You see, this could be dangerous. If Rags understood it and made use of it for own advantage. If this is true, Hada said, then we want him to compose a ballad about Cephalon 40D returning to action. That was obvious to him instantly. Max Fisher would be merely the standby president once more, as he originally had been without authority of any kind. Correct, Dr. Yushimi said, but the problem is, now that he is making up this political type ballad, Raglan Park is apt to discover this fact too, for he's making up songs about Yusufwan, and then actually, you're right, Hada said, even Park couldn't miss that. He was silent and then deep in thought. Raglan Park was potentially even more dangerous than Max Fisher. On the other hand, Raglan seemed like a good egg, but there's no reason to assume that he would misuse his power as Max Fisher had. But it was his great deal of power that one human being could have, much too much. Dr. Yusume said, care must be taken as to exactly what sort of ballads Raglan makes up. Contents must be edited in advance, maybe by you. I want as little as possible, Hada began, and then ceased. The receptionist had buzzed him. He switched on the intercom. Mr. James Briskin is here. Send him right in, Hada said, delighted. He's here already, Ito. Hada opened the door to the office, and there stood Jim Jam, his face lined and sober. Mr. Hada got you out, Dr. Yusume informed Jim Jam. I know. I appreciate it, Hada. Riskin entered the office, and Hada at once closed and locked the door. Listen, Jim Jam, Hada said without preamble, we got our greater problems than ever. Max Fisher is a threat to nothing. Now we have to deal with the ultimate form of power, an absolute rather than a relative form. I wish I had never gotten into this. Whose idea was it to hire Greg's part? Dr. Yusume said yours, Hada, and I warned you at the time. I'd better instruct Rags not to make up any more new ballads. That's the first step to take. I'll call the studio. My God, he might make up one about us all going to the bottom of the Atlantic or 20 AUs out into deep space. Avoid panic, Dr. Yusume told him firmly. There you go, ahead with panic. As volatile as ever. Be calm and think first. Not necessarily. So there, how can I be calm? Hada said, when that rustic has the power to move us around like toys. Why, he can command the entire universe. Not necessarily, Dr. Yusume disagreed. There may be limit. Psi power not well understood, even yet. Hard to test out in laboratory condition. Hard to subject to rigorous, repeatable scrutiny. Jim Briskin said, as I understand what you're saying, you were sprung by a made-up ballad, Hada told him. Done at my command. It worked, but now we're stuck with the ballad singer. He paced back and forth, hands in his pockets. What'll we do with Raglan Park? He asked himself desperately. Roll credits. As the main studios of culture in the Earth satellite Cologne, Raglan Park sat with his banjo and guitar, examining the news dispatches coming over the telepipe and preparing ballads for his next appearance. Jim Jam Briskin, he saw, had been released from jail by order of federal judge. Pleased, Raglan considered a ballad on that topic, and then remembered he had already composed and sung several. What he needed was a new topic entirely. He had done that one to death. From the control booth, Nat Kaminsky's voice boomed over the loudspeaker. You ready to go on again, Mr. Park? Oh, sure, Raglan replied, nodding. Actually, he was not, but he would be in a moment or two. What about a ballad, he thought, concerning a man named Pete Robinson of Chicago, Illinois, whose Springer Spaniel was attacked one fine day in broad daylight on a city street by an enraged eagle. No, that's not political enough, he decided. What about one dealing with the end of the world, a comet hitting Earth, or maybe aliens swarming in and taking over? A real scary ballad with people getting blown up and cut in half by ray guns. But that was too unintellectual for a culture. That wouldn't do either. Well, he thought, then a song about the FBI. I'd never done one on that subject. Leon Late's men in gray business suits with fat red necks, college graduates carrying briefcases. He himself he sang while strumming his guitar. Our department chief says Hart, go and bring back Raglan Park. He's a menace to conformity. His crimes are an enormity. Chuckling, Raglan pondered on how to go with the ballad. A ballad about himself. Interesting idea. How did he happen to think of that? He was so busy concocting the ballad, in fact, that he did not notice the three men in gray business suits with fat red necks who had entered the studio and were coming towards him, each man carrying a briefcase in a way that made it clear he was a college graduate and used to carrying it. I really have a good ballad going, Raglan said to himself, the best one of my career. Strumming, he went on. Yes, they sneaked up in the dark, aimed their guns, and shot poor Park. Stilled freedom's clarion cry when they doomed this man to die. But a crime not soon forgotten, even in a culture rot. That was as far as Raglan got in his ballad. The leader of the group of FBI men lowered his smoking pistol, nodded to his companions, and spoke to his wrist transmitter, informed Mr. Late that we had been successful. The tinny voice from the wrist answered, Good. Return to headquarters at once. He orders it. He, of course, was Maximilian Fisher. The FBI men knew who had sent them on their mission. In his office at the White House, Maximilian Fisher breathed a sigh of relief when informed that Raglan Park was dead. A close call, he said to himself. That man might have finished me off, me and everybody else in the world. Amazing, he thought, that we were able to get him. The break certainly went our way. I wonder why. Could be one of my psionic talents has to do with putting an end to folk singers, he said to himself, and grinned with sleek self-satisfaction. Specifically, he thought, a side talent for getting folk singers to compose ballads on the theme of their own destruction. And now he realized the real problem of getting Jim Briskin back in jail. And it will be hard. Hada is probably smart enough to think of transporting him immediately to an outlying moon where I have no authority. It will be a long struggle, me against those two, and they could well beat me in the end. He sighed. A lot of the hard work, he said to himself, but I guess I gotta do it. Picking up the phone, he dialed Leon Knight. And that is the end of What Do We Do with Raglan Park. Now, I hope you have enjoyed our story today. I don't know that it was that long of a story. It was an interesting one, though. Um, so go ahead and like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know what you thought. And by all means, again, location here. This is the Witches Center and Cafe. The lovely Sonia Moore. She is the witch that runs the show around here. If you stop by, say hello to her if you see her. But other than that, I would like to say this is Felix Lebeski for SL Tonight, and I hope you have a good evening. Oh, and the next story is Strange Memories of Death. So be prepared for that one.